The newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Sri Lanka's president and prime minister will be stepping down after months of political turmoil, capped off by protesters storming both their official residence. The details in this report by the Associated Press.
I think the people struggle is moving successfully, and I wish all the best for the people struggle, and at the end we will make the full change.
Today, the people show the nation and the international community the power of the people. Now, the people have been asking for a number of months to resign Gota. They asked Gota to resign and give the power to people. But what they did was they were trying to be in power using various methods. So today the people who were in the struggle, they entered the President House forcibly and took it in control.
A low-pressure area and the southwest monsoon are expected to bring rains across the country. Pag-asa said the LPA was last spotted 685 kilometers northeast of Surigao City, Surigao del Norte. It is expected to bring scattered rain showers and thunderstorms in eastern Visayas, Caraga, and parts of Bicol region. The State Weather Bureau is also monitoring one or another LPA that is currently outside the Philippine area of responsibility. Meanwhile, Mimaropa, Western Visayas, and Zamboanga Peninsula and the Bangsamoro region will experience cloudy skies with scattered rain showers due to the habagat. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Finance Chief Ben Diokno insists that the Philippines' debt to GDP ratio is still reasonable. The details in this Bloomberg video.
What about ultimately your debt levels and the amount of fiscal space you had? I mean, does this concern you? And as incoming finance secretary, how will you address this? Because, you know, as a central banker, you did meet with various credit rating agencies, and it's very important to have their confidence, isn't it?
Correct. It's to our credit that during the entire episode of the pandemic, the rating agencies have continued to affirm their investment-grade credit rating for the Philippines, despite the fact that there's a wave of downgrades for other developed and emerging economies. But going back to the debt issue, our debt to GDP ratio was 39.6% in 2019. That's before the pandemic. Now, as a result of the pandemic, we have to borrow money and we have to spend more money again for the pandemic activities like the vaccines, the health system, etc. And so the debt now is in the neighborhood of around 63%. That is really quite reasonable because the old doctrine says that you have to have a debt to GDP ratio of 60%. That was, I think, at least 20 years old doctrine. Given the most recent or series of pandemic, or rather crisis in the world, most countries now would have a debt to GDP ratio of 100, 200, some even 300%. So ours is 63%, and we can easily outgrow this if we continue to grow at around 6 to 7%, which we hope to do.
Well, I mean, you've got to target a forecast of between 7 and 8% GDP growth. Of course, that's the incoming or the outgoing official forecast. So are you going to change that? And what can you do as Finance Secretary on a fiscal side to perhaps mitigate some of the pain that comes from inward-bound inflation, i.e. supply-side inflation?
Well, on our original forecast, by the way, was 8 to 9%. Now we have downgraded that to 7 to 8% this year as a result of the elevated world crude prices resulting from the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, so we are looking at 7% to 8% growth this year. In fact, the first quarter, the economy grew by 8.3%. That's higher than everybody's forecast. And we expect the second quarter to be even higher because the first quarter growth has to contend with a surge that happened in January. So let's say this year we'll grow at 7%, and we expect the economy to grow at our long-term growth trajectory of 6% for the next 5 years. And so easily that could reduce our debt to GDP ratio to around 60%, maybe in 2 to 3 years' time.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk is abandoning plans to buy Twitter for $44 billion. Musk, who is the world's richest man, said that the social media company failed to provide information about fake accounts on the platform. Musk had threatened to halt the deal unless Twitter showed proof that spam and bot accounts constitute less than 5% of users. Twitter shares fell 6% on Friday. Now, the company said it will sue Musk for backing out from the deal. Now, here's a quick look at some of today's headlines. Vice President Sara Duterte transfers the office of the OVP to Mandaluyong City. The country's Muslim community celebrated Eid al-Adha. And in sports, Converge is in for a winning streak after fending off its unmanned Northport 104-98, while Rain or Shine kept its playoff hopes alive with a win over NLEX 96-86. And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 10:15 in the morning as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.